Değerli konuklar, tekrar hoş geldiniz. Kahve arası biraz uzadı. Sosyalleşme ihtiyacımız hepimizin arttı tabii pandemi sonrası. Ama bundan sonraki oturumlarda da coffee breaklerimiz olacak. Ona saklamanızı rica ediyorum. Çünkü çok önemli paneller, çok yararlı, bilgilendirici panellerimiz, fireside chatlerimiz, sunumlarımız olacak ikinci yarıda. Tüm hızıyla ikinci bölümü başlatacağız. Şimdi özellikle Explore New Markets başlıklı bir panelimiz olacak birazdan. Bu panelde moderatörlüğünü Atina merkezli bir yatırım şirketi olan Elstone Capital'ın başkanı ve ortağı Mihalis Stangos üstlenecek az sonra başlayacak olan panelimizde. Ve yine panelistlerimizi de ben hızlıca hatırlatayım size. Yeni pazarlara yatırım yapan uluslararası özel sermaye şirketi Apis Partner'ın yönetici ortağı Hossam Ebu Musa olacak. Bir diğer panelistimiz Azerbaycan merkezli çok sektörlü yatırım grubu hepinizin bildiği Paşa Holding'in CEO'su bizlerle. Celal Gasimov yine bugün bizlerle. Ve Yunanistan'da kamu destekli yatırımları finanse eden Kalkınma Bankası Hellenic Development Bank of Investment'ın CEO'su Antigoni Limberopoulou bizlerle olacak. Ve son olarak da Londra merkezli bir yatırım şirketi olan Stargaon Capital'ın yönetici ortağı Robin Butler bizlerle olacak bu panelde. Ben izninizle lafı uzatmadan onları sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Dear panelists, please welcome to the stage with big applause.
So hello, great to attend this conference, and big thanks to Ihsan and the FIBA team. Every year it's becoming bigger, and it's so great to see that the ecosystem it grows. I had the privilege to be also last year, but also a few times in the past. And it's a great honor for me also to be the moderator of this panel. Exploring new markets, and actually we have a quite diverse group in this discussion today. And I would like quickly to welcome all of you, Hossam, Jalal, Robin, and of course Adigoni, and pass very quickly the floor to you to make a very short introduction, an elevator pitch. I would say, and I will start with the lady, Adigoni, Ms. Limberopoulou.
Thank you for the invitation. Congratulations on this great event. I'm Antigoni Limberopoulou. I'm the CEO of the Hellenic Development Bank of Investments, which is actually the state-backed fund of my country. We manage more than 2 billion euros coming from the public budget and European resources, and we invest only indirectly to funds. We try to develop the venture capital and private equity market in Greece. So we mainly target funds that will invest mainly in Greek companies across all sectors and across all the stages of development of these companies. I've been with the organization the last 25 years, since its inception. I think for an elevator pitch is enough for now. Thank you.
Robin.
Thanks very much, everyone, and to the organizers for this very interesting event. My name is Robin Butler. I'm one of the partners at Sturgeon Capital. We're a London-headquartered investment firm that manages just under $300 million on behalf of the likes of the IFC, SBI Holdings, and Chevron, across both private equity and venture capital. I run our early stage investing, which is focused on a region that we refer to as emerging Asia. That is Central Asia, the Caucasus, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And to put it into some context, we often say that it's Turkey 10 years ago. So a large young population, high smartphone and internet penetration, but still relatively low levels of technology adoption, and opportunities across both business and consumer to be solving some of the fundamental problems that affect them in their day-to-day lives.
Jalal?
Good afternoon, everyone. Grateful to be here on the panel and glad to be, as always, glad to be in my second home country, Istanbul, or second hometown. I'm representing Pasha. Pasha is a company originally from Azerbaijan, operating today in 5 countries. It's Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, Montenegro, and Uzbekistan, and in 4 industries. So first being financial industry and e-commerce, financial technology and e-commerce. Second one being real estate. Third, agro, and fourth, grocery business as a standalone. We employ slightly more than 22,000 people and continue investing. Right now, we are actively investing into a couple of big projects.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Hussam, and pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the organizers, and thank you for FIBA for having us here. So we are a growth capital private equity firm. So the differentiating element from other kind of colleagues is we invest only in one sector, what we call tech-enabled financial services, also known as fintech. And we have a global mandate. We're currently investing from our 3rd fund. Our first 2 funds were more skewed towards emerging markets. Our 3rd is a global mandate. So we have strong kind of like track record across Europe, Africa, South and Southeast Asia. We have 3 main offices in Singapore, Dubai, and London, where that's the headquarters. And yeah, I'm based in between Dubai and Cairo, where I kind of live. And we basically will cover that maybe in the discussion, just to keep it into very elevated. What we do is we basically provide anything between the $40 to $80 million checks who come after venture to businesses that are already established and proven. And we just help them through the growth journey to take them into the next level of a strategic acquisition or a capital market situation.
Awesome. And I'm a general partner of Wellstone Capital, an Athens-based VC, seed Series A, sweet spot about 1.5 to 2 million tickets. Industry agnostic, but mostly focusing on digitalization and megatrends, life in the 21st century, impact, things like that. So let me start with Adigoni again, and if you give us, it's a common question, but because we are covering a huge geographical area, and we are going to explore exactly what are the opportunities and the challenges in these areas that you are actually are active and searching for investments. But also there is a remarkable run in the Greek ecosystem the last 5-6 years. So if you can tell us what are the challenges and opportunities in the Greek ecosystem and what is your learnings from this?
Okay, I think it would be better if I provide an overview of what has happened the last year, so as to identify the opportunities and perhaps also weaknesses. So as you all know, Greece has been a very tough financial crisis from 2010 roughly to 2020. The last 5 years there's been a great development in terms in the investment landscape and the venture capital ecosystem. To give you an example, the public funds that were invested in the venture capital industry from 2000 to 2020 were something like 300 million. From 2020 until today, the committed capital surpasses the 1 billion. So you understand what has happened. So Greece is experiencing a political and financial stability in the last years, which is, of course, the ground actually for sound investments. We have the human talent, and we have a government that is investment and investors friendly. We have the financial instruments in place, and we have become part of the investment radar of a lot of European and global investment schemes. To give a bit more information about what HDBI has done this for 5 years, we have committed almost 1 billion in 35 venture capital funds that mainly look for Greek companies in various sectors with a priority, let's say, in agri-tech, in ICT, in energy, in health, and all the parallel, let's say, subsectors. The reason that we have attracted this investment interest and the reason why I believe we have also gained some investment grades from the international houses is not only because we took the measures that we should have taken, we did many reforms, impressive reforms that someone can experience when he is in Greece, and also part of this success is owed to the successful exits. We had a small number, but significant successful exits from Greek companies that put us in this global investment scene. So it is our obligation now and our responsibility to maintain what has been achieved so far and be a more, let's say, serious investment player.
Robin, you invest in emerging Asia and emerging markets in areas that often are a bit overlooked by mainstream investors. Tell us a bit about the ecosystem there and also about the key challenges you encounter in these regions.
A bit overlooked might be a bit of an understatement. I think, sitting in this room is a bit different. When I talk about Uzbekistan, everyone's familiar with where it is, but when I sit in someone's office in London or the US, oftentimes have to explain where it is on the map because they've never heard of it. So we face certain challenges there, and usually when, say, Western investors have heard of the markets that we're investing in, it's usually not for the best reasons. The media is very good at picking up when things go wrong, but not so good at when picking up things go right. But if I kind of look at the region on a sort of fundamental level, emerging Asia is about 500 million people, $1.4 trillion in GDP, median age 28, and very high smartphone and internet penetration. But if you look at the kind of levels of technology adoption, it's significantly behind other emerging market peers. So the majority of SMEs and businesses still run on paper and Excel. Those businesses, as well as consumers, typically don't have access to financial services. Majority of transactions are still cash-based, with some notable exceptions, markets like Kazakhstan, for example. And e-commerce is a fraction of what it is in other markets. Now, each of those, I'm not talking about anything that is revolutionary or sort of new technology or new opportunities. We've seen this play out in markets like Indonesia, in Turkey, in Brazil, in Mexico, over the last 5 to 15 years. Those markets together have produced over $50 billion plus companies, and also, I think, importantly, as investors, produced some of the true kind of right tail outcomes in venture. So you think about Early Bird, Digital East here in Turkey, Kazakh in Latin America, Open Space in Southeast Asia, together doing sort of 15 to 20x DPI, plus 35-40% IRR on those funds. And we really believe that that opportunity exists for exactly the reason, or sort of the word that you used in the question. These markets are overlooked, and therefore they're misunderstood, and therefore we believe that they're mispriced. And making money really in any industry that you're investing in, if you can identify an opportunity that is mispriced and be there early before others have identified it, clearly you need to be right, and you need to be right at the same time, at the right time. But we really believe that emerging Asia today is at an inflection point that, let's say, Turkey was at 10 years ago, and that there is the opportunity to be investing in the Trendyol, the Nubank, the Gojek of these markets at an early stage and at a valuation which allows you to really generate those kind of outsized right tail outcomes as an early stage investor.
Jalal, Pasha group is a very big group, activating partially in some of these countries. How do you see the entrepreneurial ecosystem? Do you agree? And what is the current state of investments in that region? What are the areas of potential development and respectively opportunities and challenges for investors in these countries?
Okay, if you talk first about opportunities, I think there are definitely few which differentiates emerging countries, including Azerbaijan. I think we have, when it comes to education system, for example, we still have part of it as like Soviet-based education system, where actually we teach very good sciences like mathematics, etc. And we have programming and all those sciences. So we have a lot of young talent who have proper education when it comes to hard skills. We have, from another part, the labor cost in Azerbaijan, including for many of these young talents, is actually probably a fraction of cost compared to United States or to Western Europe. So it's affordable. But at the same time, you know, the country, at the country level, in many countries, by the way, I think it's definitely applicable to Turkey, to Uzbekistan, to Azerbaijan. Our governments, like, we realize that that's a future. They cannot, they should do something. They should motivate or create proper infrastructure. And for example, in Azerbaijan, is being done by the Ministry of Information and Digitalization. We have different projects to support, and we actually do a kind of public-private partnership from that perspective. For example, we financed the setup and launch of Cyber Security Academy in Azerbaijan, which was their idea, but we financed it. We needed finance. And every year we have more than hundreds of graduates. They come to the market. We go through the courses. It's actually being, the programs is managed by colleagues from Israel, so it's very high-level program. But we are financing. We are doing some other things like Holberton School, where it's a peer-to-peer education system. So for us, it's a part of CSR, but it's not actually CSR. We believe it's investment into our own future, because tomorrow we are the ones who are going to employ all these graduates of those programs. But there are definitely a lot of challenges. Yeah. So first, I think one of the most important challenge, and we had a couple of sentences with my colleague. So this educational system, yeah, it actually teaches a lot of right scientific related things like mathematics and, you know, others, but we don't teach yet skills to the kids. So we give them knowledge, we don't give them skills. And that's a real big problem. So educational systems should change. We are not changing that fast in many of these countries, including Azerbaijan. There are some ideas, people realize it should change, but it's not, unfortunately, happening at the right speed. The second is, and coming from that educational system, is also part of it is a failure, kind of being afraid to fail, or the fear of failure. Because again, in our systems, in our schools, again, kids are also judged for knowledge, not for skills, mainly. But also, you know, like overall society's expectations. You go to schools, you go to university, there's a huge pressure on certain expectations from, you know, parents to kids, what they expect their kids to be when they grow. That's still part of the culture in that part of, in this part of the world. So when parents are actually putting a lot of expectations when it comes to future careers of kids, and kids are growing under that, under those expectations, and if something goes wrong, we're afraid to fail because that's not being appreciated. Definitely there is another challenge is, overall, if you talk about infrastructure for ecosystem, yeah, when I talk about, or for startups, and for me, infrastructure is like two parts of it. First, again, legislative part. Yes, governments try to do certain things, but this is one ministry. There is still another part responsible for taxation or for some other parts of the system. They are not necessarily advancing with the changes that fast. And you know, if you think about all these new businesses or new areas such as digitalization, use of different new technologies, it's happening so fast that the government is not catching up with the legislation changes to cover all those new things which are happening in the business. And from that perspective, there are a lot of gray areas. Actually, businesses are doing, and they do start using certain technologies, especially if you talk about banks, for example. They do it for good reason, but not necessarily the government on their side catch up with the changes in legislation, and then you're in a gray zone. And whether any specific individual from the government looking at the case, whether he will look at it as black or white, it depends on that person's understanding, right? And that's definitely creating huge risks, which is kind of negatively impacting the desire to innovate. And then probably one of the other part of infrastructure is actually absence, I would say, or not enough or lack of experienced mentors, coaches, who would actually coach those young people what they should do, how they should manage the problem, what kind of lessons they should take from failures. And just to cover all these, but that's also a responsibility. We also, as a corporate, we take it as our own responsibility, because again, as I said, we have more than 20,000 people working for us, and we have to let them, not to let them, but we have our role, and we recently put it into our leadership DNA, which is a must-do for all our leaders. Part of it is you have to fail fast rather than not do, and when you fail fast, you have to learn and to share your knowledge, so be vulnerable. And this is important because majority of people don't do it. We all are human beings, and we all have something in common, and that is when we do mistakes, it's something negative, and we prefer to forget. We don't want to think negative, right? So we kind of write off our mistakes instead of putting them into our balance sheet as individuals, as an intangible asset, so that we learn from it and use. So, but that could only be done with proper mentoring, with enough experienced people being in the market and helping younger generation to close those gaps fast.
Hossam, you also operate globally now with your third fund, but previously in Africa, in Southeast Asia. Do you agree with, and do you see the same challenges, although you managed successfully to back some very
Yes, look, I think I agree that some of these challenges exist. I think what I'll try to do to kind of like capture the opportunity and the challenges, I'll just share the global opportunity in basically the area where we focus, the tech-enabled financial services. I don't think we need to pitch it. I think everybody here is touching it some way or another. But basically, the thesis we invest behind and the opportunity is the democratization of financial services. This is what technology is doing. Maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and 10 years ago, the type of financial services that was available for the masses are different. It's not an emerging market opportunity. This is a developed market opportunity as well. So to use some examples, for example, the early years of digitalization of financial services were basically, we started seeing it in payments. We continue to see it in payments in a different form, but early days it was basically using technology to allow merchants to accept payments. And it was 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, only available in hotels and fancy restaurants. So we, for example, one of the investments we've done, DPO, it's basically we consolidated a group of African payments companies to create a market-leading payments company that is enabling merchants and SMEs to accept payments online, and we exited this business to Network International of the UAE. Why is this a good example? Because obviously it was a successful exit. We made more than 5x in dollar terms, but it was an exit out of Africa. And linking that to the challenges, the biggest challenge we see in some emerging markets, including Africa and occasionally Southeast Asia, is actually there is lack of liquidity. The capital markets are very shallow. And billion-dollar businesses, they have this habit of not staying at $1 billion because the currency moves. So they suddenly become $500 million. And basically, it's if you are a US investor that took the kind of the adventure of investing in Africa 20 years ago, compared to someone who took less risk and invested in the US, in dollar terms, it's likely you have made the wrong call. And this is a challenge that we see across many emerging markets. We have performed well in terms of exits, so we basically, Fund 1 is basically fully exited. Fund 2, we returned the capital within 4 or 5 years, and we delivered exits in Africa. But this is because we were conscious of this risk. We are sector-focused, and we made sure that actually we try to build businesses that are exciting for a strategic buyer. We try to build businesses for Africa, for example, needs to be multi-country. because strategic buyers will not want to invest in a single country presence in Africa. If we go back to the opportunity in Europe, our most recent investment in Europe is a company in the UK called Moneybox. This is actually democratizing savings. So savings is basically a vertical within financial services that was not democratized for many years. Lending, we started seeing lending available for the masses. Saving was still not available for the masses. And this company basically using technology and using an app and supportive regulation in the UK to offer saving products for the mass affluent in the UK, which was basically a cohort which is much bigger than the affluent that could not get an opportunity to invest. So basically, we believe that this opportunity of democratization of financial services is a global opportunity. There are some challenges in some emerging markets, but if you actually define the risk and understand the risk and try to address it in early days of the investment, you can overcome this risk, as the examples I gave about African exits.
How do you choose to enter a new market? How the deal flow is coming and how you are able to manage these teams with such a geographical dispersion?
Sure. So basically, we've been always investing in Europe, but not through the main fund. So we had the presence, and the reason why we had opportunities, so we're investors in CardLink in Greece, for example, but it was done as a separate vehicle outside the fund. The reason why, because we're a single sector focused investor, we're specialists in this field, and we built an ecosystem around it. So basically, it's the same network of people that buy the business, sell the businesses, the same strategics, the same advisors, and we were basically very engaged across this ecosystem. And when we started basically thinking of the strategy for Fund 3 and looking at where to go, because Fund 2 was mainly emerging markets, and we had this track record for some investments in Europe, many thought that we would be going into Latin America, for example. But we realized that the market structure, yes, it's a global opportunity, it's a global ecosystem, but the market structure can be different. Latin America is looking, their North Star is more the US, not Europe. But Europe is fairly integrated and linked as an opportunity into other markets we're in. The strategic players in Europe all have interests in places like India and Southeast Asia, and occasionally in Africa. And basically, it's part of the same ecosystem that we have been building for more than a decade.
Jalal, we see that traditional industries face huge digital transformation pressure. And how Pasha invests in and reacts in these innovation challenges, and how it uses internally and externally groups, startups, how it's handling this transition and revolution of AI, but also technology.
Yeah, that's really kind of big challenge, especially if incumbent businesses or traditional businesses we are in, if they are successful, and they are as of today. So how you make sure that they continue innovating, so that not losing a game going forward. So we actually at Pasha, we do a couple of things. Maybe I'll just mention. One, we at a holding level, at a corporate center level, we have innovation team. And the role of the innovation team is to make sure that this topic of innovation, of trends happening globally, including organizing conferences like this one. We have Emerge Innovation Summit in Azerbaijan, which our team is actually organizing from zero, just to create that atmosphere where people understand that we as holding, we push them to innovate, and that's what we expect them to do. We also help them. From each our company knows that if they need some advice, they can come to us. Then we do some kind of scouting program, structured scouting program, and our team is looking what's happening regionally or even sometimes globally. What are those new technologies being created which can be utilized in one of our verticals so that we can bring that to Azerbaijan. So that's a kind of role of innovation team at a holding level. Then what we also do, we just launched recently so-called Future Lab, And Future Lab is a team or company, actually it's a company, which has its own product owners, developers, and marketing people, like different experienced people there. And their role is, if any company of ours, if there is any idea, good idea, which sounds to be strategical, but all of them are busy with many other tasks, especially if you talk about banks. There is a lot of things happening from regulation perspective, other things, so not necessarily they have enough resources to allocate. So we can come with that idea to our lab, and then we will support them, actually from starting research, whether that product actually makes sense, is it solving any pain of our customers or not, and then up to real MVP, so that product is already tested. By the way, we call it not MVP, we start calling it MLP, which is minimum lovable product, not minimum viable product. So, but when it's accepted, so when it goes through that stage, then definitely team takes it back to the company, to incumbent, but the people at the company level, top management, already know that the product is tested and there is a huge potential, right? And then we definitely put it as a focus and we can actually grow. So that's the second way how we actually help them to innovate, again, because innovation and making sure that new ideas go through actually takes a lot of courage, but also a lot of efforts at the top level. So we take it, we kind of let them outsource it to our own entity. But there are also different mechanisms which we apply. For example, something like for each of our companies, we have a budget every year. And that budget, they can actually burn it and get nothing out of it. So, but they just need to spend it to show us that they are spending it in innovative solutions or products or sometimes small acquisitions in the market. So if that does not work, if we lose money, for us it's implied dividends. So
good budget. Good budget, enough budget to do something?
Yeah. So it depends. So definitely, sometimes it depends. On the large businesses, it's millions. On very small businesses, it could be up to 1 million. Okay. But still, to test and learn. And that is actually to grow. So, but what we also tell them, look, we want to, if you don't spend it, that's also a problem. So we want you to spend. That's a pressure on them to spend. If you spend and you show that you tested something, it didn't work, no impact on your performance at all. So it all is our implied dividend type of approach for them, not affecting their bonuses negatively, etc. But if it works and there is upside, we share it with them as managers. Okay. Awesome. So that's the second part. But also we have, for example, another project which we also do, we call it, it's a kickbox. So we let all our people working in the companies to come with the ideas. Every year there are about 100 ideas. And there is a jury from CEOs of our companies. So we select the ideas, we sponsor it. And there is also a team from our innovation department, which I mentioned at the beginning, who actually support those people with the ideas how to create first product. And then some of them are going to the stage where actually we invest, or our companies, sponsor companies are investing. So just as statistics, so we started it probably 6-7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Every year is about 100 ideas. So 180 ideas actually have gone through the program, but only 6 of them as of today achieved the scalable level where we are getting investments and doing business. And in those cases, we become again partners to our own employees. So once the idea it works, it becomes scalable. We move out of the company, we do that project, but we remain as shareholders in that company. So by using all these different techniques, we are trying to push innovation.
Okay. Robin, how do you combine impact investment and the social value that you're searching to the companies with the growth targets and actually the profit targets? And is it doable, especially in these emerging markets that you are at?
Simple answer, we think yes. I think there's a perception, especially in more developed markets, that if you're an impact investor, you're therefore not targeting commercial returns. And we're always very careful to describe ourselves as an impact investor because I think you need a lot of data and frameworks in place to be able to say that. But since we started investing back in 2019 in a couple of companies in Uzbekistan and expanded from there, we were always conscious that we were truly private capital investing in truly private businesses that are trying to solve some of the fundamental problems that affect people in their day-to-day lives. Now, it doesn't take much to go from there and say, well, if I'm solving those problems, I'm having an impact on their lives. But the way we see it is that the impact and the returns you make, financial returns, are inextricably linked because, I don't know, say I'm investing in an ERP solution for offline retailers. Those retailers today operate using paper and Excel. By shifting to technology, they operate more efficiently, more profitably. Maybe they just use, maybe they're a sort of single owner and they just use that to fund their child's education. Maybe they grow their stores. Maybe they expand to new locations. I'm clearly having an impact. However, they're also paying me for that. Now, the more they grow, the more revenue I generate. As an investor in that business, the more revenue that business generates, the more it's worth, the more financial returns I generate. Now, not all businesses are going to be impact businesses. We're investors in some that have no real connection to that at all, and that's fine. We're not explicitly one way or another. But particularly the kind of domestic and regional champions that we're backing across emerging Asia, I think inextricably they will have a positive impact on the individuals and businesses who use their products and services. And the greater that impact is, I think will also be directly correlated to the financial returns that we generate as investors. So to me, the two are one and the same, especially in emerging markets where these pain points are more significant and much less has been done already to solve them.
Okay. At Digoni, you have established a partnership with Mubadala investment company, but also with other fund of funds across Europe. Especially with Mubadala, you have a joint investment initiative of 400 million, right? Can you tell us a bit about that? How impacts the Greek, but not only the Greek market, and what are the potential opportunities regarding also a Greek-Turkish collaboration in the same field?
Oh, it's a big question. Look, Greece is a small market, so although there's this political and financial stability that I said earlier, we lack size, so we lack the market size. In this respect, extraversion in all levels is required, both in fundraising, so we had to attract foreign direct investments, also know-how in the level of the GPs, the LPs, and the companies. So we consider to be an open market and seek for opportunities, co-investments, and collaborations. And in this framework, we met like 6-7 years ago with Mubadala Capital. You know, it's one of the big sovereign funds of the United Arab Emirates. They also seek to expand in Europe and could use our country, let's say, as a gateway to Europe. And it took some time to establish the trust, which is the trust is indeed, as Hans said earlier, is the new coin. So we have a very good collaboration with Mubadala, a co-investment partnership. They have already invested in 3 of our local, I would say, funds, which is a big thing, and they're reviewing. They have an active pipeline of other funds that they may invest in. And this happened because we didn't have at the time big projects that they could invest directly. This is why they chose to invest in directly through funds and have this helicopter view of what is going on, all the investment activity in the country. Apart from that, we are with discussion with other sovereigns, mainly from the Gulf region, but we are in the heart and founding member of a network of our European peers that we established like 15 years ago in order to exchange know-how, to, let's say, to co-establish the best practices that need time to prove themselves, and sometimes they became obsolete at the time that they are proved. So it was a very quick and efficient way of exchanging information, sharing problems, and being wiser. We all became wiser. Again, in this same framework of the extraversion, in our small board of directors, we have Mrs. Bebear, who is the head of international affairs of BPI France, the French Development Bank, that has brought to us extremely valuable experience and know-how. because France is a more mature market and they have been there before we go there. Now, as per the cooperation between our two countries, we have a great, let's say, it's a great neighbor here in this part of the world, and I think it will be to our mutual benefit to identify co-investment opportunities, to, let's say, merge business activities. Either Greek companies would expand to the biggest Turkish markets or vice versa. Turkish companies that they want the European passport, if I may say that, or a different landscape to work. I think these are the main points, and there are opportunities because as people we have a lot of similarities. So we have a very efficient and quick way to communicate and share our truth. So I think that the future is bright for this kind of collaborations. Yes.
And as a last comment, they say that the US innovates, EU regulates, and China replicates. Do you feel that as a fund of fund and actually acting in Greece, do you feel that that innovation lag can be merged, and how do you feel it as an institutional player in your mandate?
Yeah, we don't just have to walk or proceed, we have to run very fast, and we have to invest heavily in innovation, whether it's AI or whatever comes next, comes tomorrow. And again, since we're a member of the European Union, in this European level, we have decided that we need more money to the scale-ups because pre-seed, seed, and startup financing is quite satisfactory within Europe, but scale-up financing is far beyond we're lacking. So we have decided to put more money, let's say, to keep the technological sovereignty in the neighborhood, and not to leave it. We have to make enormous, big steps to compete fairly.
Robin, you're facing a different challenge, in my opinion, as the emerging markets can shift very quickly, politically, economically, socially. How do you structure your investments or fund model to stay agile in these tough moments when they come?
I mean, I think you only have to see what's happened in Turkey in the last couple of months, and that's very true of what's happened in Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. Since we started investing in 2019, we've had countries invaded, nearly go to war, burn through their entire foreign currency reserves, revolutions, almost revolutions. And those are only the big ones that you see on the surface. So yeah, it's a different, there are different risks, there are different challenges that come up investing in these markets. One thing we've always believed and we've seen in some of the early investments we made is that when you're investing in a technology company that is operating in a very nascent industry where, let's say you have sub 1% digital penetration, if that is a large enough industry, you're not relying so much on the growth of the industry, you're relying in the shift from offline to online. So let's say it's sub 1% today and it goes to 10% in the next 10 years. And that's the advantage we have. And how do you stay agile? In some ways, you stay longer term and you say, well, okay, if I look over a 10-year horizon, I do need to time the in and out correctly, but I have some flexibility to do it. But if it goes from sub 1% to 10%, and let's say you could be 30%, 60%, and I think that's possible in these markets if you have a kind of funding and team advantage, you can be a very, very large business without necessarily having had to rely on a positive kind of continual macro trend over those 10 years. That being said, we do structure all of our investments through international holding companies, so that from a legal perspective, we're protected in that way. And if and where possible, and where there are companies that can earn hard currency revenues on kind of local currency costs, and I think it's a lesson we've learned from what's happened in Turkey over the last 10 years, the success of companies like Insider, showing that if you can leverage local talent at a sort of local currency cost and earn revenue in hard currency, in dollars or otherwise, you can build very, very large businesses. So there are a few ways, but in the end we can't get away from it, and it's probably why, I mean, 95% of investors would never touch the markets we invest in. I'm okay with that. I know that they have a different risk appetite, risk profile. I guess I just have to find the 5% and then put a compelling product in front of them.
Thank you. Jalal, a short answer as we have surpassed our time. How do you choose where to invest in which country? How you choose your segmentation in the fields? And how you create economic value to these markets that you enter?
Yeah, actually, the way we look at the markets before entering is very right. Actually, you answered it in your own question. Will we add value? What kind of value we can bring? If you talk, for example, just maybe I'll give you one example, and that will probably answer it. So last investment, or the most recent one, is our investment into Tashkent with Ritz Hotel and Apartments. And why we do it? First, in Tashkent, with all my respect, there are nice development, nice hotels, but there's no any ultra luxury one. We, as a development company, we have developed a number of ultra luxury projects in Azerbaijan and out of Azerbaijan, such as one and only in Montenegro. We know that we have we have a very good relationship with hotel brands. So it wasn't so easy to persuade Marriott to give Ritz brand to Tashkent. Nobody else from the region could have done it. We just leveraged on our relationship, and that helped. And we believe that by bringing that product to Tashkent, there will always be 100 people in any country who can afford buying the best property in the city. And that is going to be the one, because it's going to be Ritz, it's going to be first entry approval. So again, this is a combination of what is there in the market. Can we do something different for the market? What resources or assets do we have, whether it's relations, your ability or skills to develop something, or relationship with brand you can bring to the market. So combination of all these factors is actually dictating what to do when you go to new markets.
Okay. And Hossam, we're going to close with you. You have invested in some of the most transformative fintechs. What role does embedded finance or digital banking play in unlocking this huge potential in this market that you invested, you've seen?
Sure. And I'll try to link it into basically some of the markets, the newer markets that many of you might not be familiar with. So I'll try to be brief. First of all, digital banking, of course, we all know as digital banking. I'll use two examples of digital banks we invested in. One of them is a pure digital bank, so it's defined as digital bank. The other company is not a digital bank, but it's banking the unbanked digitally. So the digital bank is Time Bank that started in South Africa. And what they've done differently is they realized that South Africa is a kind of medium-sized population, highly banked in terms of actually having a bank account, underbanked in terms of actually using the bank. So familiar to hear a little bit. And basically, it's a big country. So they did a kiosk model, like a glorified ATM, where basically customers can go into this ATM and use the services if they need to do KYC, if they need some of the cash services, and do everything else digitally. And we expanded this together with a partner in the Philippines to Southeast Asia, because it's the same market structure. To your question of how to choose a market, it was exactly the same market structure. So we did not expand into like Namibia next to South Africa, we expanded to the Philippines. So it's exactly the same market structure. The other example is M&T Haran, which is Egypt's largest financial services company, banking the unbanked, 7 million customers in Egypt. And basically we supported them last year to acquire a business in Turkey, TAM Finance. And basically this is a business that offers lending products, and basically in a non-digital format, but with a very strong digital platform to offer many other digital financial services. And this is not a digital bank, but it's digitally enabling individuals and SMEs and small companies to transact and do financial services in a digital manner. So this is a segue to embedded finance. It's not embedded finance. This is contextual finance, because consumers or businesses can see the different products. Embedded finance, which is the biggest opportunity in the world in our view, is basically not seeing the difference between these services. So I'm sure many of you might have changed how you actually buy your phone. Instead of buying a phone, buying a line, buying insurance, now you can go to a shop and buy monthly installment, get a phone, data, minutes, insurance, and you just pay whatever every month. This is embedded finance. It's all embedded in one payment. The future will be that basically you will be paying a monthly installment and using a car. And this car will be insured, will have roadside assistance, it will be fully covered in service. And are you buying it? Are you renting it? You don't know. You're just paying a monthly installment. Someone is providing the balance sheet, someone is providing the insurance, someone owns the customer, someone is doing the credit underwriting. It's all embedded in one interface. And this is booming. Why? Very simply, banks and insurance companies versus e-commerce. The cost of acquiring customers for banks and insurance customers is 30 times. E-commerce is 4 times. Retailers is 1 time or 0 because consumers just walk into a retailer to do something else. So we see a big opportunity in embedded finance and in digital banking across growth markets and developed markets alike.
Thank you all, and I hope we open a bit your appetite with several investment opportunities across the globe and emerging Asia. And we can connect after in the next break. Thank you all.
Thank you.